All right, so we're going to be starting out by talking about different ways that you can back up your data. And there's lots of different methods that you can use to back up or store your data. And some of the different methods that I mentioned here include CDs and DVDs, flash drives, external hard drives, and cloud storage. All of those are different methods that you can use to store your personal data, and each of them has their own advantages and so some of the things that you want to consider with each of those different storage methods are the cost, the amount of storage that you're actually going to have available to you, how easy it is to access those different methods of storage, and the ability to create a system image, which we're going to go back over again in depth here in a moment. So let's talk about these four different pros and cons that you want to weigh out. I'm just going to go back a slide so we can see what we have here. So CDs and DVDs are very inexpensive. It's fairly easy to burn data, music, pictures, any of those different options to a CD or DVD. So the cost is pretty good. The storage capacity is not that high on a CD or a DVD. You're not going to fit that many pictures at all. You're not really going to fit hardly any video on a CD. On a DVD, then you'll have more options there for size. As far as ease of access goes, most older laptops and desktops have CD or DVD drives, but a lot of the newer ones do not. So if you're using your CDs or DVDs to store data, you want to make sure the devices that you're going to need to access them on will have that option. You can always get an external CD or DVD drive if you need to do so, so you can still read your data that way. Now, one of the reasons, the main reasons why I would not suggest using a CD or DVD to store important data is because they can easily get scratched, and unless you're verifying that the files are all stored and working after you're done burning the disk, you may leave yourself open to having problems down the road. So if you use burning software to store data, pictures, music on a CD, usually it will ask you, do you want to complete a data verification process to make sure that that data is all there and working. And in those cases, of course, you can make sure that the data is not corrupt or damaged when it has been copied to your device. So I have the question here, are Blu-rays practical for backup? While Blu-rays do offer a lot more storage space than a typical DVD or CD, most devices aren't going to have a Blu-ray player, and it's pretty uncommon that you find those these days. Blu-ray players are also more expensive, so you've also got the expense of having the drive itself that will allow you to burn or copy. So as far as CDs and DVDs go, I wouldn't really recommend those as a typical storage medium. Of course, they're nice if you need to make a copy of something for a friend to give it to them. You don't want to be giving out your flash drive. Those are good purposes for using your CDs and DVDs. But anything important like pictures, videos, those types of things, if you set it on the shelf wrong, or get something spilled on it, it can be stepped on. There's a lot of ways that that data can be damaged that don't even involve the mechanicals of it. So that's one way you can back up your data. So the second method that we're going to weigh out the different pros and cons on are flash drives. So the cost of a flash drive is very low, and that tends to be kind of the replacement for CDs or DVDs. Most people now will use a flash drive to store anything that is either temporary or even long-term. So the cost for those is pretty low. If you're going with a larger storage capacity, you can even get up to 256 gigabytes now for I think like $50 or so. It's really not very expensive, so you can fit a whole lot of data on them. So when we talk about the storage capacity, again, there's a lot of ability there to fit a lot of your data on the flash drive. You just want to make sure you're getting the size that is appropriate for your needs. And when we talk about ease of access, there's two things we want to talk about with a flash drive. And that's obviously how easy it is to get your data from one device to another. And if you've used a flash drive before, or even if you haven't, it's very similar to a CD or DVD drive where you're going to access that device and all of your data should be pretty easy to get to. But when we talk about ease of access, we also want to talk about the potential for failure. So with a flash drive, you're much more likely to be taking that with you when you go from one place to another. So there's the chance of it getting lost or stolen. There's also the chance that although there's no moving parts in the physical device, the actual hardware can get damaged or broken. And we see it a lot where a lot of our clients will either keep their power cord plugged into their laptop or a flash drive or something like that plugged into their laptop or desktop. And if you're moving that device around, it's very easy when it's sticking out like that to bump it in a door jam. And on several occasions, we have found flash drives that have been bumped or destroyed just by the device falling apart or getting bumped. So even though there can be issues with corruption problems and things like that with hard drives and flash drives, before we even get into thinking about that, you want to think about the physical device itself. They can fall apart. They do have a maximum number of uses that they're typically rated for. So typically you can plug your flash drive in and out of a USB, I think about 1,000 times or more. But that can also be affected depending on the device that you're plugging into. So if you have a laptop or a desktop or any other device with a USB plug in it, and you plug that flash drive into it, and that device is having a power issue or has a power surge, it could cause your flash drive or USB devices to actually become damaged and not usable anymore. So this is one of the reasons why I'm bringing up this subject of backing up your data, is because we can think about it like our data is safe, we have it stored somewhere, but there are certain scenarios where certain data storage solutions are better or worse than others. So the next thing that we're going to discuss is external hard drives for backing up your data. And this is actually what our recommended method is. We do recommend that you use cloud storage in conjunction with another storage method to ensure that your data will be accessible in case of a fire or a natural disaster. But in a situation where you're trying to save an extra copy of your data locally, or if you want to make sure all of your programs and settings and those things are backed up, then an external storage hard drive would be the best solution for you. And with our clients that purchase an external hard drive, we actually set up a utility that will back up both of your data files and do a whole system image or take a snapshot of your computer. So that's what this is that I'm referring to here about the ability to create a system image.
You need one.
So what a system image is essentially taking everything in your computer hard drive and putting an exact replica or copy onto that storage device. So how many of you have come across an issue where Windows wouldn't boot, or you had an update error and you couldn't get in like normal? Have any of you guys ran into that? We see it a lot with a lot of our customers, especially after Windows updates. And we can't really do anything to prevent software from doing what it's supposed to do, but we can kind of put those preventive measures in place. And we like to compare the external hard drive backup as in comparison like an insurance policy. Because just like your car, you're driving down the street, you don't want anything to happen, but you have that insurance in case there is an accident or something does occur. And it's very similar with having an external backup for your computer, where you're going to have a backup going on with your hard drive that does a system image. It takes a snapshot of all your documents, your pictures, and even your programs. So this is a huge thing that we tell all of our clients, is that if you end up having Microsoft Office, for example, if you pay for that outright, that's $150 to $300 depending on what
You need an
version you have.
external storage device.
And with
I had
those,
one
with
once
the
hanging off the back of my computer, and it didn't work. I mean,
with the system image, what you're doing is actually capturing all of the software that's installed with your computer as well. So if you needed to go back to a previous date before something failed, like your hard drive or a bad Windows update, usually we have that image set to go weekly so that you have something to go back to. So the external hard drives that we have here, in case anyone's interested, I did get some questions about the cost. I think they're 2 terabyte external drives, are $109, and that includes setup. We do the system image setup for you and the file backup. So what that does is it creates a normal file backup, just like you were copying your data to that CD drive or that flash drive or whatever. But it also does that second system image, so that if your hard drive fails or Windows has a bad update, you only have to go back to that last image, which should be within the last week. So we've had several customers and business owners that have really been grateful that they had that in place. Because you don't want to lose that $150, $300 that you might have paid for Microsoft Office because you don't have the product key anymore.
Just have a question.
Yes.
We have an external hard drive, but I don't believe we purchased it from you. Could we pay to have it brought in with the computer when we bring it in for a cleanup, to have this utility put on?
Absolutely. If you have Windows 7 or Windows 10, we can put that on there for you. And we typically do not charge you an extra fee if we're doing that with the cleanup, as long as we don't run into any problems.
Thank you.
No problem. So the system image really is priceless. Without having that, if your hard drive were to go out or Windows did an update and you needed to get all of your things back, you would then either have to produce that product key that you purchased from Microsoft or Office, or you would have to come up with something new. You wouldn't have the option of putting that software back in there unless you had the information that you had when you originally installed it. So it's really a priceless thing to have. And I know I'm spending a whole lot of time on this with you guys, but I think it's super important. That's why we like the external backup drives as opposed to some of the backup options. So the last option for backing up your data is cloud storage. And as I mentioned before, if you want to be able to access your data in the event of a natural disaster, or if you're not with your device, cloud storage might be a good option for you to have access to that data when you're not there, or if you want to sync your data between multiple devices. So if you have several computers and you want all of the same data to be on those computers at the same time, that's an option for you also with the cloud storage. So the cloud storage cost can really vary, and it tends to be based on the amount of storage capacity that you have. But I typically recommend, for the cloud storage, I typically recommend that you go with OneDrive if you are going to use Microsoft Office in conjunction with your computer. With Microsoft Office 365, for one user on up to 5 devices, you can have 1 terabyte of cloud storage, and you can also have access to the latest Office programs, and that's like $6.99 a month or $69 a year. Or if you want to have separate users with separate cloud storage, you can do the family plan, which is $99.99 for a year. And that lets you have up to 5 or 6 separate accounts, meaning you can get 6 separate terabytes of cloud storage. So using those two methods in conjunction with each other, you have your system image and your local backup, and you also have the access of your data remotely from anywhere where you have internet access, and to ensure that that data is being backed up. So as you can see on my screen now, I have showed you a couple of different cloud storage common companies that offer cloud storage. And we have iCloud, we have Dropbox, we have OneDrive, and we have Google Drive. Now, all of these companies will give you, I think it's 5 across the board, 5 gigabytes of free cloud storage space, and then if you go over that, they want you to pay for that. So that's where I recommended that you get the Office 365 if you're going to be using cloud storage and you need Word, Excel, or any of those other programs. It's really the best deal. You get all of that in one place, and you can even put that, whether it's iCloud, Google Drive, Dropbox, or OneDrive, on your cell phones, and you can have them also back up your pictures automatically, which is really helpful. So a question that I got here was security with external and cloud storage, and this is a great question. So obviously I can't tell you about each individual cloud storage company's security protocols and what they have, but they are pretty secure as far as it goes with your account. So if you were in our seminar yesterday, we talked about some different ways to protect your accounts and your passwords. If you're going to be storing important data in the cloud and you want to make sure no one else can access it, then I would recommend setting up a 2-step authentication or a 2-factor authentication, which just means that you're either getting a verification code or you're having to get a second code from another source before you can get in to access that information. Now, when it comes to security on your local devices, whether it's a flash drive, a CD drive, an external hard drive, you can encrypt your data using special software or creating like password protected zip documents on your external devices, but typically they would not have any extra security built in place in the event that somebody was able to access your computer. So what I mean by that is that if you were, say, victim to one of the remote support scams we talked about on Monday, then that person who's in your computer would also have access to whatever data is stored on that device because it's not encrypted. However, when we talk about having the external backup hard drive that I mentioned, the system image that is occurring weekly is an encrypted type of backup. So that means that if your computer gets infected with a virus, that encrypted system image is not going to be affected because it's not going to be accessible by that virus or that external source. So that again is another reason why the external backups with the system image is really helpful. So the next thing and the final thing before questions that I want to discuss today is about storage device failure. And we did talk about this briefly, but it's important to know that failure is imminent and you should never, ever, ever have important data stored in only one location, whether it's on a CD drive or your flash drive or your computer itself. That has a physical mechanical device on older computers that has moving parts that will eventually fail. So you want to make sure that you are storing that data in a second location, either in the cloud storage or on a second hard drive, anything where you have a second copy of that data. If you're not putting it in two places, it's not safe. That's always what we tell you. So that's what that picture is here, meaning secure your files, secure them in a second place. And again, just typically any kind of system where you're backing up your computer automatically, unless it's doing that system image that we talked about, it is not backing up your programs. So by having that external hard drive with that system image, you're making sure that your programs are going to be safe as well.